At 1 p.m. on November 22nd, 1963, Jacqueline Kennedy was sitting inches from her husband when a bullet destroyed the right side of his head. Brain matter landed on her pink Chanel suit. She climbed onto the back of the limousine. Secret Service agent Clint Hill pushed her back in. At Parkland Memorial Hospital, she refused to leave the trauma room. She held what remained of his skull together with her hands. When a priest arrived to administer last rites, she took her wedding ring off and placed it in Jack's hand. She never changed the suit. When aides suggested it, she said no. Let them see what they've done. She wore it on Air Force One when Lyndon Johnson took the oath of office. She stood there, her husband's blood dried brown on the pink wool, and she did not look away. Then she went to work. Over the next 3 days, Jackie Kennedy planned every detail of the funeral. She studied Lincoln's funeral and modeled the procession after it. The horse-drawn caisson, the riderless horse with boots reversed in the stirrups. The eternal flame at Arlington, her idea. No one had done that before at a presidential grave. On November 25th, as the caisson passed, she leaned down to 3-year-old John Jr. and whispered something. The boy stepped forward and raised his small hand in a salute. It was his 3rd birthday. That image became the most iconic photograph of American grief. And the woman who created that moment, who staged the entire funeral while still wearing her husband's blood, was 34 years old. She would not break. Not yet. Not in public. Not ever. 2 weeks after the funeral, Jackie moved out of the White House. She took Caroline and John to a house in Georgetown, but the crowds made life impossible. Tourists parked outside, people knocked on the door. She moved to New York. In Manhattan, she tried to build something normal. The children went to school. She attended events quietly. She leaned heavily on Bobby Kennedy, who became a surrogate father to her children and, by many accounts, her closest confidant. Bobby was running for president in 1968. Jackie supported him privately, but feared what she already knew, that the Kennedys were targets. On June 5th, Bobby was shot at the Ambassador Hotel in Los Angeles. He died the next day. Jackie attended the funeral. Afterward, she told friends, "If they're killing Kennedys, my children are targets." She said it plainly. She said it without drama. And she meant it. This was the moment that changed everything that came next. Not grief, not loneliness, fear. A mother's calculation that staying in America, remaining a Kennedy, might get her children killed. She needed an exit. She found one. On October 20th, 1968, 5 months after Bobby's murder, Jacqueline Kennedy married Aristotle Onassis on his private island of Skorpios, Greece. She was 39. He was 62. America was furious. The widow of Camelot had married a short, weathered Greek shipping magnate who was everything Jack Kennedy was not. Newspapers called her Jackie O. The Vatican suggested she might be excommunicated. The public felt betrayed. They missed the point entirely. Onassis offered 3 things no one else on earth could provide. First, physical security. He had his own island, his own airline, his own army of private staff. Her children would be unreachable. Second, financial independence. The Kennedy Family Trust provided comfort, not freedom. Onassis provided freedom, estimated at $3 million per year in personal spending alone, plus a $20 million prenuptial settlement. Third, and this is what most people never understood, he offered invisibility. In the United States, Jackie Kennedy could not walk to the corner without being photographed. In Greece, on Skorpios, she was just a wife on an island. She read, she swam, she raised her children in peace. The marriage was functional, not romantic. Onassis continued his affair with Maria Callas. Jackie spent most of her time in New York or Paris. They lived largely separate lives, connected by mutual convenience. By 1973, the marriage was effectively over. Onassis began negotiating a divorce. Before he could finalize it, his health collapsed. He died on March 15, 1975, in Paris. Jackie received approximately $26 million in the settlement with the Onassis estate. She was 45 years old, independently wealthy, and finally, completely free. In 1975, Jacqueline Onassis, she kept the name, returned to New York permanently. And then she did something no one expected. She got a job. In September 1975, she became a consulting editor at Viking Press. When a controversy over a novel about Ted Kennedy's fictional assassination forced her out, she moved to Doubleday in 1978. She stayed for 15 years. This was not a vanity position. Jackie worked 4 days a week. She commuted to the office. She acquired and edited books, real books that she found, championed, and shepherded through publication. Her taste was specific and revealing. She published books on the ballet, on Egyptian archaeology, on the French Impressionists. She edited Michael Jackson's autobiography, Moonwalk. She published works on historic preservation, Indian mythology, and the photographs of Mark Shaw. She edited novels by first-time authors nobody had heard of. Her colleagues said the same thing, consistently. She did the work. She read manuscripts at home on weekends. She wrote editorial letters. She called agents. She showed up to publication meetings with notes. This was not performance. This was a woman who had found, for the first time in her adult life, a professional identity that belonged entirely to her. Outside of Doubleday, she was equally deliberate. She led the campaign to save Grand Central Terminal from demolition in the late 1970s. She succeeded. The building still stands because of her. She exercised in Central Park. She had dinner with close friends. Maurice Tempelsman, a Belgian-born diamond merchant, became her companion from the early 1980s until her death. They never married. They didn't need to. She raised her children carefully. Caroline went to law school, married Edwin Schlossberg, and largely avoided public life. John studied law, passed the bar on his third attempt, and moved toward publishing. Jackie attended their events, supported their choices, and kept the family name out of the tabloids as much as any Kennedy could. For 25 years, she lived in the same Fifth Avenue apartment, 1040 Fifth Avenue, apartment 15A. She walked in Central Park. She worked at Doubleday. She went to the ballet. She saw friends. It was, by every account, the happiest period of her life. She had built exactly what she wanted, a private life in the most public city in the world. Not many people could do that. She made it look easy. It wasn't. In January 1994, Jackie was diagnosed with non-Hodgkin lymphoma. She was 64 years old. She had been in excellent health. The diagnosis was advanced. She underwent chemotherapy and initially told friends she would beat it. By March, the cancer had spread to her brain and liver. The doctors told her further treatment would not help. Jackie made a decision. She stopped treatment. She went home to 1040 Fifth Avenue. She wanted to die in her own apartment, on her own terms, surrounded by the people she chose. In her final weeks, she put her affairs in order. She reviewed her will. She organized her papers. She walked in Central Park one last time in mid-May, supported by Maurice Tempelsman. Photographers captured the image. She knew they would. She looked thin but composed. Caroline and John were with her at the end. Maurice Tempelsman was there. A small circle of close friends came and went. On the evening of May 19, 1994, Jacqueline Kennedy Onassis died in her sleep. She was 64 years old. John Kennedy Jr. came downstairs and addressed the press outside the building. He was 33, nearly the same age his mother had been in Dallas. He said, "My mother died surrounded by her friends and her family and her books and the people and the things that she loved." He said it simply, the way she would have. The easy story about Jackie Kennedy is the one about the pink suit and the pillbox hat. The beautiful young wife. Camelot. The tragedy. That story is true, but it's not the whole story, and it's not the important one. The important story is what she did after. She survived the public murder of her husband. She survived the murder of her brother-in-law. She made a calculated, controversial marriage to protect her children. She endured public scorn for it. She outlasted it. Then she built a life, a real one. She worked a real job for 15 years. She saved a landmark. She raised 2 children who, by the standards of political dynasties, turned out remarkably well. She found a partner who suited her. She lived quietly and deliberately. She did all of this while being the most watched woman in America. Every meal, every walk, every relationship. Observed, photographed, judged. Jackie Kennedy didn't just survive Dallas. She survived being Jackie Kennedy. For 31 years, she carried that name and everything it meant, and she refused to let it define her. That's not grace under pressure. That's something harder. That's grace as a permanent condition. She earned it.